Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Expanse reaction video. Finally. Today I'm going to be watching, reviewing, and reacting to Season 3, Episode 8 of The Expanse. And before I actually start the episode or talk about The Expanse at all, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone on my Patreon. Those of you that are on my Patreon are aware that I had a loss of a pet recently, and that led to me taking some time away because it was just difficult to process, and I honestly didn't really want to be on camera and was worrying about my other pets, and I don't really want to get into it too much, but I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody on my Patreon because you guys were very kind and supportive and understanding, and that really did, it helped me to feel a little bit better to know that I didn't have to worry about hurrying back and getting back into the shows before I really felt ready to do so. And I think it'll also help generally with my reactions, honestly, because they probably wouldn't have been up to standard during that time period. So I do thank you, and I also apologize again for the delay, but I really sincerely appreciate your support. And I think that's all that I'm going to say about that situation right now. I don't really want to be talking about it more because I want to focus on the show and not get myself sad or anything. But I really thank you guys very much for that. So this video is probably actually going to be going up on Patreon on Wednesday. I had planned on Tuesday. Today's Tuesday, but I sat down earlier this morning and I was like, you know, I think that I should watch the last episode of The Expanse, and the last episodes of all my shows that I watched, I should rewatch them now so that I'm like really up to speed because it's been a little while. And I sat down to do that, and there's a lot of shows that I'm watching. I kind of lost track of the large number of them, so that pretty much has taken most of the day. So it's later on in the day today that I'm filming this, and I think that it probably won't actually get edited and put up until Wednesday, and I apologize for that as well. But hopefully it'll be worth it because it means that I'm actually more caught up and right in the moment, because it actually has been a little bit since I saw episode 7, so, and I'm glad that I did that because I got to watch episode 7 really just a short time before I'm watching this, and I'm pretty excited to see what's gonna happen because, as you guys are all aware, I'm sure, Expanse fans, there was a pretty massive cliffhanger. A lot of things were introduced about the new story arc in episode 7 revolving around the ring, really, and what exactly it is and the attempt to discern that, but also with our various characters being in different places now. It's been a while since all those events that happened before, and I'm still curious to see, you know, is Prax totally gone? We saw that Bobby has moved on. Is she going to be integral to the story at all going forward? Naomi is in a completely different place, focusing more on her Belter identity, and I'm very fascinated to see where that storyline is going, especially with the introduction of new characters and elevating older characters who were smaller, like Drummer, to what I assume will be bigger roles now that they're with Naomi. And then, of course, the kind of big one at the end there with Holden seeing Miller, whether this is some sort of hallucination on his part, whether this is some sort of message coming because he's close to the ring, which has come out of the kind of birth of whatever it was, the ring being whatever it was that the proto-molecule was building, the supposed work. So I'm very, very curious to see what's going to happen with that in particular, but really everything that we've seen. So, with all that being said, I think it's finally about time to get back into The Expanse. So, season... You gotta see this. Holden's trying to tell himself that that was nothing.
Out of welcome after that Belter kid.
No.
Alien ships are gonna start pouring through that thing, wanting to chat with our leader. Slingshot or shit, make it out to the other side. Negative. It's like you went down a rabbit hole. This never ends. What do you mean, Holden? trying to talk to me?
Yes.
Huh?
What?
We should talk. And I know when I look into someone's eyes, when there's more to a story, I want you to trust me. I won't betray that trust so that we can get your story out to everyone.
You have a master's in cognitive psychology, but you think that the way to get someone to trust you is to look in their eyes and say, I want you to trust me with force and try to pressure them?
Thank you.
I don't think you paid attention in school. So, I guess whatever, like, physically enhancing drug or substance she used in order to, you know, be able to attack and kill him in that way also must do something to her body that, like, overloads her or something, because she had to pass out afterwards. I mean, I guess I understand why he would think that, you know, right?
Damn doors and corners. I mean, that's where they get you.
Doors and corners.
It's not somebody that'll put you down.
He's talking about police stuff?
That's what it is. What's with the hat? Keeps the rain off my head. I'm not infected. I didn't have a stroke. I'm running out of ideas here. There's this rookie down in Star Helix. Kid never learned to clear a room. I kept telling him, I said, there's doors and corners, kid. If you don't clear the room, if you don't come in
Okay.
slow.
So this doesn't make sense. It's just being a hallucination of
Why
Holden's.
are you telling me this? I'm supposed to think about this.
He's like blurring out like a hologram.
This could mean something. Detective Miller crashed into Venus with Julina. They signed together. That's how it ended. I don't want to talk about it. Julie. It happened to Miller, too. You're dead. I'm just an investigator now. I find things. That may have looked weird. Hey.
May have.
None of my business. Are you sick, Cap? No. I don't think so. Look, if there's anything you need to get off your chest, I'm not much help, but I also don't judge. It's a great quality. I find things. You were saying something? The Grigas in Sector 18, the rookie? Have we talked before? Do you even know you're here? Yeah, sometimes. When I exceed my boundary conditions, that's when they kill me.
What?
Who are they? Why me? Why am I special? Do you have a ship? See, you're a tool that goes places. I'm a tool. That's things. We're tools.
For the proto-molecule?
What is it doing? So I'm at this unlicensed brothel, right? It's egregious. Down in Sector 18. It's an hothead rookie. I keep telling him, watch your doors and corners, pal. You don't come rushing into a room. You dick hanging out.
Holden! Holden, we got a situation out there. We need it right now.
Just 1 second. I'll get rid of them.
Holden?
Stay with me.
We have a situation.
Stay with me.
I don't think that's in his control based on what he's saying, Holden.
Earth and Mars believe the ring is theirs to investigate.
To plan, and are already plotting ways to control it. I'm here to declare for the OPA that
What?
builders are the only legitimate benefactors of the ring. Whatever it may ultimately prove to be, it belongs to the belt.
That's what that guy was doing?
That we will not bargain, nor back down from this claim. We've struck at the inner specials, and we will strike again.
Jesus Christ.
He's trying to start the next war.
They'll fire on him too.
Well, you're assuming he cares about survival.
That was not Holden. It's some kind of truck.
Well, okay, who was it then?
A composite generates him, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Take a closer look at the footage. We not got time for that. Hail the Rossi, get Holden on comms and tell him he has 10 seconds to retract.
We have to fire on the Russian out there. We have to do it now.
What?
It is the only way they'll know that the OPA disavows James Holden, otherwise they will kill this ship along with his.
The UN is scanning up. Open up or have Alex override.
English. All we've been through. How many times have I asked you to trust me?
None.
I'm asking you now.
1 minute.
Alone.
Come on, Miller, give me something. You want a ride? You got it. But I can't give you one if I no longer have a ship.
Want to run too fast, kid. The room eats you.
PDC! We have no PDCs. You need to go for the ring. Slow the Rossi down. Flip and burner. Hard as you can and without that missile catching us. We are dead if I slow down. It's a risk we gotta take. Massive D-cell. Right before the ring. Try not to stroke us out. How do you know all this about the ring? Because Miller told me. I can't prove a goddamn thing. But this is our only way out. Alex! Do what the cap said! It's gonna be nasty! Hang on!
What? Wait. That's the ending? No. Oh my god. Ooh. Okay. Well. That was episode 8. Alright, just let me decompress for a second here. Okay, well, another pretty crazy place to leave us at the end of the episode. They definitely enjoy doing this to us sometimes, don't they? Alright, well, that was interesting. A lot of the episode early on was a kind of continuation of building things up for this, I guess, current approaching storyline, and mostly just people reacting in the aftermath of what happened in the previous episode, both with the pancaking of Mineo, but not his ship, which again I think was interesting that happened, and then Holden with the aftermath of seeing Miller, and it was kind of another gradual episode building up what's going to happen this season, I would say, until we get close to the end, and then everything just goes nuts from the time that the
Fast-paced
UN
and,
ship exploded.
intense.
So
To
a
the-
lot happening there, a lot to go over. Kind of start with some of the earlier things. So I'm trying to piece together exactly what is going on with both this Miller situation and with kind of the overall setup that got us to this point where the ship is blown up and then Holden seemingly takes responsibility for it on behalf of the OPA, but I mean, we know that really wasn't Holden. Naomi is almost certainly correct that that was a kind of computer-generated composite of him based on things that he's said previously, messages he's put out in the past, designed for this kind of specific purpose. And it's interesting to think about that clearly this woman who we've been watching this episode and the last episode, who went onto the UN ship, the science ship, and sabotaged it, who basically planted a bomb and then exploded it when she was off, and also ended up killing this one guy who was helpful to her in the process, using these crazy enhancement drugs. She must seemingly have some sort of involvement or connection with the male member of the documentary crew who is currently on the Rossi. Because he is very clearly the person responsible for planting and submitting and putting out that message, and then making it so that Alex and everyone on board the ship didn't have the capability of shutting it down or communicating with anyone else afterwards to let them know, you know, hey, this wasn't actually Holden, something has happened on our ship, we've been sabotaged, and this is some sort of scheme. So I'm curious to kind of determine what their motivations exactly were there in doing this, in putting this whole plan in motion. Because you obviously have him getting on board the Rossi under the guise of being part of a documentary crew, and then you have her getting on board the UN ship under kind of the pretense that she's, I guess, an engineer, that she's there to do maintenance and structural work. So they've kind of got these covers, and then they get themselves in place. It was a plan put together, but and then, but to some extent, maybe it also has to tie back into like the funding of the documentary crew getting on the Rossi in the first place, because that's the entire reason that they were even going to the ring where the UN ship would be and doing this at all, right? That's the only reason that Holden and them are going there, is because they apparently were paid to participate in this documentary that was focused on their life on the ship, but also going to see what was happening at the ring. So someone with money is involved in this. There's some sort of plot. And then the question is, you know, what is exactly the purpose? Is the purpose just to, you know, set up Holden and get him killed? Because that clearly is what was about to happen. If they didn't enact this crazy plan. Because you had both the UN ships and the Behemoth feeling that they had to, like, target lock Holden and blow up the Rocinante after that, the UN ship for obvious reasons, and then the Behemoth because they felt that that was the only way that they could try and prove to the UN ships and not be attacked themselves that they actually had not been involved in blowing up that ship, and that they didn't know what Holden was doing, and that they disavowed that, and they didn't want a open war or conflict. So they both were target locking on the Rossi, and they were going to blow them up. I mean, we still see the missile is still going right at them. So, I mean, I guess killing Holden, blowing up the Rossi could be one potential motivation, and not just killing him, but fully discrediting him. I mean, turning him into this, idea that he's some crazy kind of terrorist person. But at the same time, I mean, maybe it has more to do with the overall, political situation at hand, right? Because they could have just said that Holden was doing that, you know, for his own purposes or whatever, but they explicitly had the message being of him saying that he was doing this on behalf of the OPA. So it seems like there has to be some sort of underlying political motivation that is anti-Belter, anti-OPA, or maybe anti-OPA government that they're trying to set up. Maybe that's more of the underlying force here, and Holden was just a convenient person to use to do this for some reason, because maybe he's just a huge kind of figure that they thought it would be useful. I don't know. But it is interesting to think about if the OPA is the actual target, or you know, is it the OPA generally, or is it because they're trying to put in place this new government that will be seen with legitimacy? You know, they're saying to Drummer, and she's laughing about it, but they're saying the new Belter nation, they have a new Belter, you know, navy. The Behemoth is supposed to be kind of the flagship of that. So they're trying to establish the Belt as kind of on a equal footing with Mars and Earth as a nation, basically. And this is something the Belt has never been before in any way, shape, or form. They've never been viewed with that level of respect. They've never had that sort of kind of seat at the table, which is something Fred has always talked about. And this is kind of their opportunity for that. This is their goal with everything, to try and kind of craft themselves into more of a similar kind of political structure to what you have on Earth and Mars, to give them legitimacy and some sort of power in this kind of struggle, partially so that things that have happened to the Belters in the past cannot continue happening in the future, so they can't be basically walked all over, treated as colonies, and, you know, having horrific things like what happened on Eros happening to them. So they have all these kind of lofty goals, and, you know, maybe this is a force, whoever it is, whether it's a governmental force for Earth or Mars, or I don't know, but somebody that's trying to discredit that effort by putting the idea out there that they're still a bunch of, you know, like reckless, foolhardy terrorists, and that really all that they want to do is destroy Earth or Mars or gain power for themselves, and that they can't be trusted. Seems like this would be a good way to go about doing that. So then, if that is what is happening, then the questions become, who is responsible for this? How do they kind of come back from this, the Belters, and try to demonstrate that that's not the case? Because I don't personally feel like even blowing up that ship would have been sufficient. They're going to have to kind of prove that that is a faked message, I would say. And why was it useful for whoever's doing this to have Holden be there, be the kind of figure seemingly behind this? So I'd be very curious to see how all of that develops. So there's a lot of stuff going on underneath the surface, the political situation and motivations, which is fascinating. But then on the other hand, we have all of this stuff happening with Miller, and what I find really interesting, and that you kind of see Holden realizing as he goes through, is that Miller seemingly is there, I guess on behalf of the proto-molecule, or because or whoever, whatever species, alien creatures it is that is responsible for the proto-molecule. I don't know. But they've seemingly put this version of Miller, whether it's not just a vision, but they've seemingly put him out there for a purpose. And that purpose maybe being communication, or like a stated goal. I mean, the proto-molecule, anything that we know about it, anyone that's been infected by it, you know, we had Julie, but then we also had Katoa, you know, there's a constant talk about the work. And the work partially seemed to be building what became the ring, but maybe, you know, it's more than that. And this is another step in that process. But again, it's interesting to see Holden going through the episode kind of gradually coming to realize, no, I'm not infected by the proto-molecule. No, I'm not just sick. No, I'm not just going crazy. This is happening. Some version of Miller is here, and here for a reason. And I can tell that I'm not just going mad because of things like, you know, you can, and we can tell, like Miller wearing the hat. Miller talking about things that he experienced on series that he never really, or at least we didn't see him talking to Holden about, that would have no relevance to Holden. So if Holden was just having a vision, a manifestation of Miller in his head, a hallucination, he wouldn't be wearing a hat that he never saw Miller wear, that he didn't feel there was any purpose to, or he didn't understand anything. So the idea then becomes this particular incarnation of Miller, manifestation of Miller, comes out of whatever is left of Miller and like his own, I guess, sense of himself, or the proto-molecule sense of who he was. I don't know. But it's there for a purpose, and you see Miller like saying all of these things that come out of I guess his training, and he's talking about himself as the investigator. He says they build the investigator, they kill the investigator. So I guess the idea being that for its own purposes, the proto-molecule, or whatever alien species is connected to it, is repeatedly building a form of Miller from the pieces of him that it absorbed, building this form of him, putting him together, and kind of sending him out there with the purpose of, I guess, I don't know, communicating or doing something, you know, he says, as a tool, or investigating. They say, he said investigator, so I assume investigating something, trying to detect something, figure something out on behalf of the proto-molecule, or accomplish something on behalf of the proto-molecule. And then when he goes past whatever he's supposed to do, or boundaries as he's saying, then they kill him again. So they disintegrate him, tear him apart again, and then they build him up again when they feel that they need him or use for him, which is fascinating to think about. And whatever their use for him is clearly tied to Holden. Holden is marked for some reason, whether it's some particular thing just because Miller is who they're using and Holden is a convenient person to reach out to because he has a connection to Miller, or some bigger reason, I don't know, that has to do with just Holden in particular. You know, they talked a lot about ideas of fate or destiny in this episode, so I don't know whatever the reason for that is. For some reason, Holden is the one that is chosen. And then what ends up happening? Miller's saying all this stuff about, you know, checking your corners, going in slow, and that was a really cool shot of him, by the way, when you see, like, he reappears finally when Holden's there screaming for him, like, help me, and he's just standing there, like, with his head down with the hat over his eyes, and, like, the lights in the background, which was pretty cool looking, but, and he's basically he's saying something to him that makes Holden think that they should go into the ring, and that is their only way of escaping this missile blowing them up. And that they need to go into the ring slowly. So I guess the idea being that Mineo went into the ring too fast, and that's why it destroyed him. So, but I guess we'll see, you know, they're right at the edge of it, where they left us at a cliffhanger, so I guess we'll see if that's right. I'm assuming it's going to be correct, because I don't think that all of them are just going to be killed, blown up at the beginning of the next episode, but we'll see what happens. But I'm extremely curious now to know what is going on, you know, what is the proto-molecule or the aliens behind it, what is the goal? And I'm just really fascinated about this Miller thing, you know, is there part of Miller's consciousness actually in there? I mean, does he have a sense of who he is? Like Holden was asking him, do you know where you are? Is he just a tool? You know, what is the larger implications of this in kind of the Expanse world, about the idea of what constitutes, you know, a human entity or a life? Is this actually, you know, something we would consider to be a self-conscious Miller that is being recreated and killed over and over again? I don't know. I'm really fascinated to find out. And then some other, you know, smaller things this episode, really focusing on the relationships of the people on the ship. I think I really liked the emphasis that they put on Holden and Amos's relationship there, and him getting Amos worrying about him, but then also him, you know, knowing the right things to say to Amos, to get Amos to trust him about something that even seems totally insane. And then interesting to maybe compare that to the female documentary crew member who keeps telling everyone to trust her and that she is master's in clinical psychology, and then she goes about it in absolutely wrong way possible. But I thought that it was nice seeing that, you know, and made sense that Amos would listen to Holden in that moment, even when he's saying something that sounds totally nuts that Miller told me to do it. But alright, I think I'm gonna wrap this up here for today, guys, and I'm really excited to see the next episode. But if you have any thoughts for me, anything significant you think I didn't talk about, or questions, comments, please do leave them down in the comment section below. And I'll wait with anticipation to find out what happens when they apparently are about to go into that ring. So, thank you very much for joining me today. Again, thank you for your patience in waiting for this video. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.